What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa. You know, I got my girl Justine co hosting this thing with me. And if you're new here, this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. We invite guests on to share their own story of how music has made a positive impact in their lives, as well as their own mental health journey. Before we get into our wonderful guests, which we're really excited about, let's just take care of the business. If you are enjoying this thing, even just a little bit, go ahead and give us a follow, subscribe to the show. It's an easy way to help support our show, as well as leave a positive rating or review. It goes such a long way, and we truly appreciate everyone that's already done it. Can't believe how many we have up there. We just appreciate you so much. Today in the show, Justine and I were joined by X.ARI. It was such a great conversation. We tapped into her early days of falling in love with music to her mental health advocacy. And it's so incredible to have an artist like X.ARI who's such a huge mental health advocate and within her music and outside of her music, bringing that mental health awareness. We also dove into living with bipolar 1 and how that is for X.ARI, which was a really great opportunity because I feel like people will talk about depression or anxiety, but anytime we can maybe have an open, honest conversation about a disorder that some people may not know about or has a huge stigma, such as bipolar, it's great to sort of get that chance to sit down with someone. And of course, we talked about Frenemy, which has been on repeat for me as well, and her new record on the way this fall. Cannot wait for that. I don't want to take up any more of our time, but remember, as always, all links are below. Go check out XRE. Go give her a follow. She's a wonderful person, and I would have her back in a heartbeat anytime. Let's just get to it. Here's our conversation with XRE. If we had a picture of what we wanted for the podcast, music and mental health, there's no one really better to have on.
Yeah.
And the deeper I got, I was like, this is so great because again, it spoke to, wow, like this is going to be so cool and so great. So we appreciate you taking the time for us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
Yeah. So something we always love to ask our guests is what are your first memories of falling in love with music?
Such a few memories flash when I think of when I fell in love with music. But I like see myself in like a little dress as a kid, like looking in the mirror and like singing to myself. And like I used to find it so soothing to sing to myself. And
Yeah.
there's just something about singing. And I think because like I had anxiety as a child and had like a very tumultuous household, like singing was very like healing and soothing to me. And then also I think about like being at school. I went to a private Hebrew school. I'm not religious, but I went to Hebrew school. I'm Jewish. And I remember like in prayer, like we would have to sing like prayers. And I just always wanted to be like the loudest and like hear my voice the most in class. And then I'd say like big artists like Celine Dion and Mariah
Yeah.
Carey and Toni Braxton, like I just wanted to be this like big diva vocalist like them. I'd always like sing like Hero by Mariah Carey. And I think that was like, I just wanted to be that good. And unfortunately, I never got that good, but I think my songwriting has gotten great, but I can't say I'm like a diva like the ones I listen to, but they definitely like made me fall in love with music. And I think it's just like the emotion behind it and the
Mhm.
Yeah.
big like the big diva belt, like all that emotion. I just feel like I had so much emotion and I didn't know what to do with it. And singing was a great way to process it.
I
Oh,
love that. I can relate to that a lot because I did not talk till I was about 4. And
Wow.
when I did finally talk, I did that. I sang a lot and I still do. It's a very big coping mechanism. I love singing. I love singing to myself more so than singing in front of people. So like amazing props for being able to like
Yeah.
perform in front of people. But I love that because I feel exactly the same. Had the same experience for sure.
yeah. I think we all like Mariah Carey brings it back for me. Celine Dion for sure. I mean, that's what my mom we would have. And just those powerhouses. And although like you don't see yourself in that way, like some your vocals are so great. And it's not just because you're sitting across from us right now, but they're just it's something special because I think in the era of music right now, there's a lot of we've had like a lot of alternative acts, a lot of either folk acts or just in quieter vocals. And it's so exciting to have an artist like you on that's so different that we've had but has such a great message. And just from either your Instagram or even your website with all of your mental health resources you have on there, I was checking out. I was like, this is just you have that voice, maybe just in a different way, at least to me, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's in a way like sometimes wish I was a bigger artist, but not just for like the success and like definitely not for fame. I'm not a fame chaser, but I would love to have a sustainable career in music. But I think even more importantly, I think it's so important for artists of influence, like big artists like Taylor Swift and, you know, Beyonce and all the mega stars to have a voice and have a message. And for me, my message is mental health. And if I can help one person, or of course, more along the way, then my mission is fulfilled. And I feel like more artists, I'd like to see more artists who are way bigger than me have call to actions. And I do see other artists doing that, like Lady Gaga with Born This Way Foundation. And I recently was at a Noah Khan event, and like he has a mental health, I think it's called the Busy Head Project. He has a mental health nonprofit as well. So I love seeing when bigger artists who actually have like a meaningful impact get on board for powerful causes.
I know Lady Gaga. We have an episode on Lady Gaga because she is someone that is just so in terms of that mental health. And I know chronic pain, fibromyalgia. I know, Justine, that's a
Mhm.
big thing for you as well.
Yeah.
And Noah Khan, I did not even know that. So that's amazing. You said that we're always looking like who are we missing in the terms of mental health awareness, and I had no idea. So that's amazing that you said that, and I can't wait to add that to our list of things to cover.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to talk about obviously your music. Frenemy has been out since the 21st of June. I love it. And I love that you had said that in terms of mental health and what we're talking about, it's that ode to bipolar disorder. And it also features your alter ego, Ira X. So I guess for anyone, if you just want to, what about that song was therapeutic to get out for you?
I've written so many songs about mental health and also bipolar specifically, but I love the melody in this chorus. Like the
Hmm.
chorus just is just to me like it just clicks. It's just I think it's a great song. And I know
Yeah.
I'm biased in my own writing, but I like some of the songs better than others, you know, and I think this one is just like a pop like perfection, like the top line, the lyrics, the melody, like all of it just gels, and the production suits it perfectly. And for me, I think it was just important to share because Neuroplastic, the EP that it's on, is a mental health album, and I wanted to have different songs kind of showcase and feature different parts of my mental health experience. And Frenemy in particular is showing Ira X, who emerged after I recovered from psychosis when I was in the hospital suffering from psychosis. And for those who do not know what that is, it's a loss of reality, which could have delusions, hallucinations, paranoia. It is not a disorder, but it's a symptom of bipolar 1 or schizophrenia. Not everyone with bipolar 1 has psychosis. It's more often with schizophrenia. It can also be drug-induced symptom. And it's a very confusing, difficult, and challenging, dysfunctional place to be. I've unfortunately had psychosis a few times. And one time when I was hospitalized, I felt very fractured, like my identity. I couldn't tell like who I was anymore. I was like, this is before I came out. Well, it came out because I never even knew I was queer. So before I realized I was queer, I was unsure of my sexual orientation. I was unsure of my gender identity. I remember using like the gender neutral bathroom because I didn't know like which one I should go into. And I
Hmm.
was completely lost. And my identity, I saw it as like part woman, part man, part artist, whatever that is. And after I healed and decided to advocate for mental health more publicly and intertwine it in my music, I decided to take that male aspect of me and create a character out of it.
Mhm.
Because I think a big part of healing is like finding the art and the creativity in our challenges and finding meaning in it. So I developed my alter ego, Ira X, who's like the insane, zany one that comes along with psychosis and mania. And he's like the lightning and thunder, and X.ARI is the sun and the light. And so he's my total opposite, although he is part of me. And my pronouns are she, they, and I don't identify as a man, but I definitely feel like we all have masculine and feminine within us on a spectrum, and definitely alpha female. And it's so fun to bring him in. He gets the second verse, and it's just like when I say, oh, he's back again, we're talking about Ira, and that means it's kind of like whenever I have an episode, Ira comes back. And I've been having fun. I just started his own Instagram page, and I got access to the Spotify, so I've been sharing videos and photos and just having fun, showing a different side, a different character. And I think it's so liberating because when we create characters, we can step aside from ourselves and take a break. And even though he is part of me, he is his own identity as well. So the song features him, and I featured him in another EP called Unify. So this is kind of like his comeback.
Yeah, I checked
I love
out
it.
I checked out his Instagram and I loved that, and I loved the visual aspect of it too, but just listening to Frenemy too, and I think that was one of the things where, oh, he's back again, and listening to it, and just like you were just saying, it was one of those things where, like, this is so cool to have a song like this that's guessing me wonder, like, well, what would he look like? Who is he? And now is on Instagram, I have that connection to it, and I just loved it. I loved everything about it, and the fact that there was now that visual aspect, and even in you too on your own Instagram. I love how you have that visual, although yes, maybe someone's listening to you and they can't put it, but it just I guess I would just say like such a colorful artist, inside out to me, like as a listener looking at it.
Thank you. And I think also for those who don't know Ira X, because I think most people wouldn't,
Yeah.
oh, he's back again, start depression could be like about a relationship, about, a man that comes back and kind of whenever he shows up, shit blows up, right? So I feel I like the double entendre with that.
And another thing that I love about you too is your Pain into Power campaign and talking about mental health. And that's something that when I saw it again, I was like, this is the perfect artist for our podcast
Aw.
because that's something that I think is so difficult to turn your pain into power and have that ability to do that. And, I have an anxiety disorder and maybe also realizing, hey, maybe this is maybe ADHD. Maybe there's that because of misdiagnosis in women, realizing maybe the things I don't like about myself or about my anxiety, that that's not who I am, but I can turn that into this creative outlet. I can do so many things. And I think it's such an important thing. How important for you is that to have that as part of, your artist of the Pain into Power campaign?
Oh, I think Pain into Power is so important and available to anybody. Like I don't own the saying,
Mhm.
it came to me when when I was recovering from the hospital and I decided to advocate for mental health. Pain into Power were the words that came to me. And before I had Pain into Power, when I was first diagnosed with bipolar 1, I was actually full of shame and self-stigma. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't think I'd ever bounce back. I thought I was basically doomed after being diagnosed and hospitalized. I didn't realize that the life I have now would be available to me. And at that time, I was really craving to see other people open up authentically and honestly about their story and share like thriving stories, not just I just wanted to see someone else say, hey, I had psychosis and I'm okay, and I have a
Yeah.
job and I have a life and a relationship and a car or whatever it is. I know these are some materialistic things, but just knowing even that like you can have love even with a mental health disorder and like a future. And so I decided to be that person for others, even though I was still on the healing journey. I wanted to show that you can heal and that you can thrive and that you aren't doomed, and like be that and show myself that, which I did, and then show that to others. And so Pain into Power to me means turning weaknesses into your strengths, finding them to be your superpower and channeling it through a medium like art or self-care or anything that, whether it's volunteering or karate or cooking, whatever it is, channeling pain and turning it into something, finding the meaning in it, finding a way to draw light from it, create from it. And I think the more meaning and purpose in life, the more we have to live for. It's so important to fight depression and just for positive well-being to have meaning and purpose in our everyday. And so it gives me meaning and purpose to share Pain into Power with others and to do it through my medium, which is music.
I love that because I try to live like that as well. Like with my trauma and CPTSD and being late diagnosed autistic, I try to use that as well for when it comes to like my social media and doing this podcast. Even like it's one of those things. It's like when you go through something awful, if you can go and help people navigate that as well, it kind of gives you a purpose and it helps you feel like there's a reason and a reason to keep going to help people out of that same situation. And I love that. When I heard about that about you, I was like, super relatable, and I love it. And I really adore anybody else who tries to do that as well.
Yeah, I think we're all capable of sharing, empowering others, and it's all in our own way. It doesn't mean we have to publicly share our diagnosis or do anything like that. But if you feel inclined to, you'd be surprised how many people will connect. Like, because I've been advocating for mental health since 2016, 27, I think 2017 now, actually. People know me as like an artist who advocates for mental health, and people reach out to me and that I'm not even close with or that I barely know and say, hey, can we talk? Or can my friend who's never met you call you? They just got diagnosed with bipolar, they're lost. And you'd be surprised how many people want to hop on a call, and I just talk to them. And I say, I'm not a mental health professional, but I can share my lived experience and give you some tools that have helped me. And right now, like somebody that I'm not close with reached out, and I helped her kind of create a plan for herself. And she's been texting me saying, oh, I'm doing great, sending me photos. I'm doing this now. Thanks for this. This is really working. And it's so special to me because, like, no, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor, but my lived experience is helping someone else, get on the road to recovery of healing. It just like it makes my challenges feel worthwhile.
You're kind of being who maybe when you were younger and going through everything you would love to see in music world or just anything. I think you are absolutely being that by doing these things. And I know you don't need me or Justine or anyone to tell you that, but just hearing everything you're all about and what you stand for is something that is so needed. And I think it really does help end the stigma and people like myself too. Like I can think of whether it's musically or even when I was younger, I didn't have that either. Like, I mean, being 38 and not having that, if it was mental health, you were either maybe crazy or, those stupid terms they would say about all these things about mental health. And now we're getting to a place where it's getting a little better. And that's why artists like you are so important to be using that.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. It's so important, and like so much. I just get so much meaning from it. It's such a dual like benefit. So like it's helping me too.
Yeah.
With being such a great, strong advocate and everything, we would love to just kind of give you the floor to be able to talk more about living with bipolar 1, since so many tend to misunderstand it. And we just want you to be able to kind of talk about it a little bit for everybody.
For sure. So again, not a mental health professional, but can share my own lived
Yeah.
experiences. So from my understanding, there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 tends to have longer episodes of mania and depression, and bipolar 2 may or may not have a manic episode. And if you do, it's usually shorter than a week, and surely does not lead to psychosis. So bipolar 1 is like the more severe winner. Number one.
Yeah.
And I live with anxiety day to day and some OCD tendencies. I've been diagnosed with ADHD. Like, I don't know if I've like combated it. That was my first diagnosis I ever got because I don't know how much it affects my life anymore. I feel like I might have kind of rewired and figured out ways to manage my ADHD where it doesn't feel like a disability. And with bipolar, I've experienced depression, mania, PTSD, and psychosis. And the PTSD was part of the depression and the mania that I've gone through, but I don't day to day live with PTSD. So I have quite a cocktail of different diagnoses, and they can appear differently on different days. I'd say when it comes to bipolar, the biggest misconception is ups and downs throughout the day. That is actually a disorder called cyclothymia. And that's when you go highs and lows throughout the day and you can really cycle, and cyclothymia. And cyclothymia specifically. And bipolar is actually flare-ups with extended periods of hopefully wellness and balance. So if we're bipolar, from my experience, would be like balance, 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 and then a depression. And then maybe that depression leads to mania and psychosis. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a depression. And then there's been times where I've been stable and then all of a sudden there's mania. And maybe that mania comes with an episode of psychosis, maybe not, and just comes back to baseline. But I'm typically at baseline and I have episodes of lows and episodes of highs. And when the highs are not contained, meaning the mania, I will end up in psychosis. And the scary thing about psychosis is the more times you have them, the harder it is to bounce back and recover. So that's why I stay on medication. I right now I'm taking Latuda, and another medication. I just switched, I forget the name, but it's a PTSD medication in combination with a bipolar antipsychotic, and they work in tandem and they keep me level. So the last episode I had was depression in 2022, did not get accompanied with a mania or a psychosis. And then in 2021, I had an episode of mania without psychosis. And then before that would be 2018 depression, mania, psychosis. And then before that, 2016 depression, mania, psychosis with a little PTSD in there. And then before that, I had my first episode when that had depression, mania, and psychosis. So I feel like it can present in different ways. Like for me, it started as the depression, mania, psychosis recipe, but the last two episodes have showed me that they can come alone. So I think with being on medication, I can still have an episode, but it's much more mild. And I think that's why the last one was only depression, and the one before that was a contained mania without getting into the psychotic part. So that's like my experience of it. But right now I'm stable and I haven't had an episode in nearly 2 years. So bipolar is not ups and downs throughout the day. It's not a moody week and then you're elevated one day and then the next day you're depressed. It's really more of an episode. And I think that's like what a lot of people don't realize. And then stigma is perpetuated when we use language like, oh, the weather is so bipolar
Oh my
today.
gosh.
It
Oh, I
rains
know.
and then it's
Oh.
shiny, sunny, and you're like, no, it is not bipolar. It is cyclothymia. But we shouldn't even compare weather or anything to mental illness, because that's how we create unsafe spaces and make people feel like they're not heard and seen. And no one says, oh, I'm so diabetic today.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what it is about mental illness. It's the stigma, it's the misunderstood parts. It's because it's the brain and the mind, and that's so different and hard to analyze compared to like a body part that's dysfunctioning. But so that's been my experience with bipolar. And I used to say, oh, it will never happen again. And I realized that is a fool's words, and it might happen again, and it probably will happen again. I don't know when, but I'm enjoying right now. I have stability, and I know when it does happen again, I'll have the tools to recover.
Oh, I'm so glad you even brought that up, because the other day
Yeah.
somebody on Facebook said, "Oh, the weather is so bipolar," and it took everything in me not to use get on the keyboard
Yeah.
and just be like, "Ah, that's just like you don't do that." And that's one thing I appreciate about you, and in doing a little bit of research too, is even your song in Love Is Blind, the placement of that. You talked about that, and where there was a cast member that had said something. I forget something used bipolar in not proper sense. And again, it creates that stigma. And I loved that I saw that you did that, because there's so many things, whether it is talking about the weather or, oh, they're acting bipolar today. And
Mhm.
again, that's why it's so great to have you on to kind of talk about bipolar one and your experiences, because so many people, they'll talk about, oh, I have anxiety, or which is debilitating. I have it too, or just depression. But there's so many other mental illnesses that so many people just toss out these terms, and it's really not helping the stigma at all.
I agree. Even I just think the word like I'm depressed is so overused.
Yes.
And it's like, are you depressed or are you sad today?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because depression, according to the DSM manual, DSM-5, is 6 different characteristics over a period of 6 weeks, I believe. And that could be things like interrupted sleep, lack of motivation or enjoyment in pleasurable activities, being tired, affecting your appetite, eating more or less, some thoughts of taking your life thing. I'm not sure if that's one actually, so I can't say that for sure, but I know the others are. And you need to get these 6 criteria technically to be clinically depressed. And some people also live with low grade depression, and that's a different story. But
Mhm.
I think it's just so easy. We're a very dramatic generation, and like I could die or I'm dead or whatever the
Mhm.
words we all use, and I use them too.
Yeah.
I'm dying from laughing. Like we're very dramatic, and I think sometimes people use these mental health words to like add the drama and impact, but we should just find other ways.
Mhm. Oh,
I agree.
oh, I love that. If
Yeah.
anyone takes anything from this, I just take that, because that's something I wish, and I'm glad that you speak on it, that other people would too. And I know it's sometimes not the easiest if you see people throw out these terms. Like I've seen it even, my fiance's friends, you'll be at a barbecue and they just, like, can we not say these things? But even another song of mine is that I love of yours is How Are You Really? And I loved when I saw your post on Instagram about it. And it really had me dive into myself a little bit of because I was one of those people in my own mental health. If people are like, "How are you?" "How's it going?" "Oh, I'm fine." And absolutely, was I fine those times? Probably not. And I've just now come to terms of, you know what? I'm gonna say how I really am and stick to that and be honest in my own mental health when I'm struggling or and just and some people are a little turned off when I'm like, "You know what? Not great today. I'm not great," instead of just the fine. And I think it was so great to kind of have a song that made me sit back and be like, "Okay, or have I reached out to that person? Have I asked the people around me I know that are struggling, how are they really?" So I want to know like what's for you, what's so special about that song?
Yeah, so I think I'm just gonna backtrack a second, by the way. Next time you hear somebody say something offensive at a barbecue,
Yeah.
I may suggest, just tell them, like, pull them
Yeah.
aside and say, like, "Hey, you know what? Can I tell you something? Are you open to me sharing some feedback with you?" And then they'll probably say yes. And then you can say, "Hey, when you said this and that, it really affected me personally. There's a lot of stigma with mental health. And I think a better way to communicate what you're saying might be XYZ." And
Yeah.
then they might respond and say, "Oh, I didn't realize." I think so
Yeah.
many people are doing it innocently and they really don't mean anything by it. Like even the words committed suicide, you only would know and if you're in the mental health community that you can no longer say that it's died by suicide. And every time I hear
Mhm.
someone say committed suicide, I say, "May I correct you?" And I
Yeah.
tell them and then explain it to them. They go, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." I've never had one person like say, "No, why do you correct me?" Right. So I think people want to be better. And some people just
Mhm.
don't know and they don't realize. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt at least.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, so
yeah.
good. Yeah, I need to practice that, and what
Yeah, it's
better,
okay to call people out. It's okay, like, in a polite way, and I'm sure I wouldn't want someone to call me out. Like, recently, I just said someone's pronouns incorrectly and felt so dumb. They called me out, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." But I'm
Yeah.
glad they called me out because then next time I'll be more mindful, so
Mhm.
it's so important. But going to how are you really? Great question, and I'm so glad that my song inspired you to dig deeper with what you share and also reach out to friends because that's so important. What are we without our support systems? But yeah, that's exactly like how it connected with you is exactly the intention of the song. I just wanted to make a simple song with the phrase, "How are you really?" using the word really to get people to open up a little further than the common phrase, "I'm good, I'm fine." And
Mhm.
really just allow ourselves to be more honest and vulnerable. And of course, there's like appropriate times. If we're about to do an interview for a job, we might not dig deeper. We might stick with the more casual, "I'm
Yeah.
good, I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?" But when we're in a setting with a friend or someone we're digging deeper with like or open to dig deeper with, why can't we be honest and share like, "Yeah, you know what, today's a tough day." And if they ask you why, go further. You don't have to dump on somebody to say, "How are you really?" You could just be honest about how you're feeling. And if you do need to vent, you can ask, "Hey, do you have emotional space for me to share a bit more
Yeah.
right now?" And I think that's also an important thing to remember is that not everybody has the capacity to handle our truth.
Mhm.
So
No.
checking in about that, but really, I'm guilty of it too. I've done that. "I'm good, I'm fine." I try to be really honest and not be like that when I need to. And I'm very big on reaching out to friends, especially people who reach out to me and who are struggling to make sure within the week of speaking to them that I'm texting them, how are you doing? Send me updates. How's it going? I'm here for you, thinking about you. Anything you need, like I think it's so important. We all get wrapped up in our own lives and we can forget that like someone just recently shared something really devastating with me and I didn't even follow up with them. Like we need to
Mhm.
follow up with people. They lost a family member or they lost a job or they got evicted or whatever it is they went through. Like, are we checking in and saying, "Hey, you told me about that thing. How's that going now?" I think we can forget just because we're all so wrapped up in our own things, and that's okay, to forget. But I think to make time once a week, even just to remember who is it that I know is struggling, and can I send them a nice message today or hop on a call?
Yeah. Oh, it's such an important song, and anyone listening, like, go listen to it because it really did have me look at because, like, even you saying, like, someone going through something, how many times do we hear people, they lose their job or they go and is small as people think it is a breakup, which can be so devastating to so many people. It's not small to them. How many times have I not reached out? And it really made me really just take a look like, how okay, I have this podcast, Music and Mental Health, and I wanna be such an advocate, and I preach mental health. wait a second, I'm not really doing that and walking that walk. So again, I so appreciated that song.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a very important, it's so simple, but an
Yeah.
important message.
Yes. And I know, sorry, Justine. I was like, I have to just talk about
Of
this song. I want
course.
to, yeah, go ahead.
So in the music industry, we know it's just a tough world overall. But I was curious how maybe you have navigated your experience being a queer artist in the industry, if there has been any different treatment or if it's been great. I am also somebody who identifies as queer, so I was just curious myself in general as well, how that kind of experience has been for you.
Honestly, like I am late to the queer game, I guess, because I only in my 30s realized that I could date women. I just like never really considered it and had a spiritual awakening was the whole thing. But I feel like since being queer, like I have more community, more people to connect with in the queer community, and I get invited to play queer showcases and things like that that I used to not get invited to do. So I have not seen it once as a limitation. If anything, it's like opened up more doors and more opportunities and more collaboration. So luckily for me, it's been mostly positive.
I love to hear that. And it with Pride just ending, as well. I love to hear that. And I feel like it's a great time, especially for queer artists in general right now. Like there has been a great just like uptick lately with like Chapel Roan and you have Renee Rapp and it's just it's been beautiful to see. And it's
It
been
definitely, yes, I
quite a
agree.
great time.
Yeah, it's like the era for the gays.
It really
Yes.
is. And I
It,
love to see it.
oh, it absolutely is. And I know too, with you, I would love to know, where would you like to see mental health awareness go? I feel like we've really made some steps, but I feel like we're not quite there yet. There's still so much stigma. There's still accessibility that a lot of people don't have, and I think it hinders a lot of people from maybe being open to getting the help they need or even just trying to see if they can get a diagnosis. Where would you like to see mental health awareness go?
The first thing that comes to me is like in the schools, and I know there are programs in schools like NAMI, Ending the Silence, because I've been a speaker on plenty schools with NAMI, but I would love to see, like, how they have home ec or whatever like that. There being like a mental health class that isn't an elective, like a mandatory class where you learn about mental health and well-being and tools and self-care and all the things to better your mental health, because so much of what we learn in school doesn't apply to being an adult. Like,
Mhm.
obviously as well, like we need a class on like taxes or,
Yeah.
having a family or things like that, more practical things. But I think just being in the schools would be so important. And obviously people just sharing more and being more vulnerable and mental health sick days being like a common thing, normal thing to do without any embarrassment, and just like workplace culture supporting mental health, having mental health days and activities to connect with your team and staff with mental health activities and wellness and awareness. And I just think like in school and in work, that's where kids spend most of their time in school and adults spend most of their time in school. If we can make the culture being like positive well-being and providing space and outlets to learn more about it and heal together, I think that would be great.
Oh, I think I was just talking to a guest on Saturday, and they had said something similar too of in the schools because, and I think about like when I was in high school, like we had health class, but I don't think we really touched on mental health, or if we did, it was just a quick skim over. Okay, here's what you need to know about depression, or if you have it, go to your counselor. And I would love to see that as well because I think it's so important, and I hope that the younger generation, I can see them taking steps. And it's so strange to
I
say,
did
oh, the
too.
younger generation, because I'm like, oh gosh, I'm 38. So now I'm part of that, the next younger generation. But I love to see them being more open, whether it is TikTok
Mhm.
or anything social media, then being open about it. And hopefully maybe there is more funding for that in schools, which I know is a pipe dream with everything going on and funding for schools. But I love that you brought that up because it's so important.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
agree. It doesn't have to be like a class all year, but even in health class, having like a month where you
Yeah.
specifically focus on mental health for that month. And then throughout the year, have wellness activities once a week or something, just bringing in a guest speaker or bringing in a guest workshop that supports your well-being. Just like it starts young, and these kids don't know what's going on, and a lot of them don't talk to their parents. And I know, like, when I was struggling as a teen and as a young kid, I didn't know where to go or what to do. So I just think it starts young a lot of the times, and it took me like 15 years to get the help I needed. So I want people to get help sooner.
Oh, I can relate to
Yeah.
that. I didn't even realize. I mean, I always knew something, whether it was anxiety or something wasn't there. And I wish I would have, instead of in my 30s, that's when I got that diagnosis of anxiety. And I was just like, wow. And then looking back, yeah, I saw it and it almost was like, why didn't anyone else see it? Or maybe they did, or maybe we didn't talk about it, or they just thought, okay, that's just how she is. So I agree. Like I would love the same thing of this, if there is anyone younger than me or even my age that maybe is on the fence, like I hope they would get that diagnosis and get the help that they need because it was such a struggle looking back at all that stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to, before we let you go, we have to talk about your EP, Neuroplastic, in September is coming out. What are you most excited about to have that?
I am excited about the music video. So I made one music video for my song Thank Me, which is a self-celebratory anthem. And it features me on ice figure skating. I used to be a competitive figure skater, so I think that piece of content I'm most excited about, because it's always been my dream to skate to my music, and I get to share that. An Olympic choreographer named Joey Russell did the choreography. It features two backup skaters, and it's just like so fun and bright and lighthearted compared to some of my other videos, and I'm just excited to share that with the world.
I'm so excited to hear it. I'm so excited to have like come on September because
I
I
know. I
again
totally
I-
do
again I'm just so
that.
excited about finding you as an artist. That's why I'm so excited somehow this
Mhm.
podcast has brought that because I think you're such an important artist in terms of mental health and just it's so great to hear an artist like you and speak the way you do about mental health. And I know there's someone out there that may listen to this and really resonate with what you said today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share and connect together. And yeah, it means a lot.
Yeah. Oh, and all right, guys, that was our conversation with X.ARI. Again, it was such a great conversation. We cannot thank X.ARI enough for coming on our show and being so open and honest about whether it was living with bipolar 1, her Pain to Power campaign, Frenemy, and just kind of taking the lessons in her song and how are you really and kind of applying it to our lives like I spoke about. Again, all links below. Go check her out. She's so wonderful and I can't wait to see what's next for her. Shout out to Nate of Impulse Artists for reaching out and setting this up because it was such a great conversation, such a perfect person to have on our show. As for Justine and I, we will be back next Tuesday with another new episode. Cannot wait for that one. For now, just go ahead and listen to some good music. Go check out X.ARI and we will see you guys next Tuesday. All right. Bye, guys.